The story begins with a fighter named Carter Bull, who was showing off his strength in a bar fight in front of everyone. At the same time, a woman named Frankie came there looking for Carter. When she asked the bartender about him, he pointed toward Carter, and Frankie silently prayed that this was the man she had been searching for. Meanwhile, outside the bar, we see a mysterious man relaxing in his car. Inside, Carter was defeating one opponent after another with ease. But suddenly, that mysterious man entered the ring. His name was Elwood Dalton, a well-known UFC fighter. The moment Carter saw him, he froze, because he knew that messing with Dalton was like stepping into the jaws of death. Carter quickly mumbled something and left the place. A little later, when Dalton came out of the bar, a man suddenly threatened him with a knife and demanded money. But Dalton didn't flinch. In fact, the moment that man looked at Dalton's face, he got so terrified that he ran away as if he had seen a ghost. Moments later, Frankie caught up to Dalton and teased him, saying that people run away without even fighting him in the ring. But Dalton didn't pay much attention and started tending to his wounds. Frankie then told him about her problem. Her roadhouse bar often had fights and brawls, and the bouncers she had hired couldn't handle them. That's why she was now looking for a strong man to manage things and was willing to pay a lot of money for it. Dalton advised her to talk to Carter instead, but Frankie wanted Dalton himself to consider the offer. Before leaving, she gave him her phone number. Later, Dalton was sleeping in his car at a gas station when a cop woke him up and told him to move along. But as soon as he drove away, something strange came over him. He parked his car right between train tracks. A train was speeding straight toward him. At the very last second, Dalton tried to move the car away, but it was too late. The train smashed into the rear of his car. Surviving that near-death moment made him rethink Frankie's offer. The next day, Dalton arrived in Florida City. After searching around for a while, he found Frankie's Roadhouse sign. Inside, he met a bartender named Laura, and then a young man named Billy, who was thrilled to meet him because he already knew about Dalton's fighting reputation. Dalton soon started adjusting to the environment, and even complimented the place's beauty in front of Laura. But as night fell, the calm atmosphere turned into complete chaos. People started fighting like crazy, and even a band member jumped into the brawl. Billy tried hard to control the situation, while Dalton watched everything quietly. At that moment, Dale and his gang entered the bar, scaring away several customers. When Billy failed to calm them down, Dalton stepped in. He asked Dale to talk outside, but Dale ignored him. So Dalton silently walked toward their bikes, making the gang nervous enough to follow him. Dale challenged Dalton to a fight, but Dalton calmly gave them one last chance to leave peacefully. Dale refused, and that was enough to make Dalton snap. He unleashed a brutal attack on Dale and his goons, breaking their bones one by one. After beating them down, Dalton once again told them to leave quietly. But when Dale still wouldn't back off, Dalton lost his temper completely and took them all out. In the end, he personally drove them to the hospital in Frankie's car. As soon as he came out of the hospital, a doctor named Ellie confronted him. She was furious. She was sick of this constant violence, and had decided to call the police. Dalton just laughed, saying that if the police really wanted to fix things, none of this would be happening in the first place. Hearing that, Ellie's anger cooled a bit, and she bandaged his wounds. When Dalton returned to the roadhouse, Frankie paid him for his work. Later that night, as Dalton slept, he dreamed about his old UFC fights. As time passed in the new city, Dalton befriended a girl named Charlie, who ran her own bookstore. Her mother had passed away, and now Charlie was continuing her dream by running the store. Her father worked 2 jobs just to support them both. Meanwhile, we see 2 boatmen named Roy and John, who were traveling with their boss Ben on his ship. When Ben heard that Dale and his gang were beaten up by a new bouncer like they were mere ants, he became furious. He vowed to destroy the roadhouse completely. Back at the roadhouse, some troublemakers once again started causing chaos. This time, Dalton asked Billy to handle the situation himself. He warned Billy about one guy who was carrying a knife. Following Dalton's instructions, Billy fought bravely, And when things got too dangerous, Dalton jumped in and saved him. Thanks to Dalton's coaching, Billy was getting better and stronger day by day, something that made Laura very happy. Later, Dalton was seen talking to a young man named Reef, who turned out to be a boxer. Dalton asked him to join Billy and help him handle troublemakers at the bar. That night, Billy and Reef teamed up and took charge of keeping the roadhouse safe from the thugs who dared to cause trouble again. Soon after, a guy named Jim started harassing Laura, asking for free drinks. But just then, Dalton showed up. The moment Jim saw him, he backed off immediately. Dalton took him outside, and that's when he noticed Dale and his gang nearby. Before leaving, they warned him that they'd be back soon for revenge. The next morning, while Dalton was eating at a restaurant, he saw Ellie again. She got into a small argument with a man, so Dalton asked her why everyone in this town seemed so angry all the time. Ellie tried to explain, but soon found herself lost in Dalton's eyes. Later, Dalton met Frankie, who showed him a picture of her late uncle. She praised Dalton for doing a great job and handed him his payment. Dalton took the money and headed toward his boat, but suddenly, he was almost run over by a car. It turned out that Dale had come there to kill him. A fight broke out between them, and in the chaos, Dalton fell straight off a bridge into the sea. Somehow, he managed to swim back to his boat, only to find Dale already waiting there with a gun in hand. The two started fighting again, but Dalton quickly gained the upper hand. He tried to reason with Dale, but out of nowhere, a crocodile leaped from the water and swallowed Dale whole. The next day, a fisherman told Dalton that Dale might have been involved in drug smuggling, and if that was true, Dalton could be in serious trouble. To find answers, Dalton went to Charlie's bookstore. He did some research but found no solid leads about any drug operation. As he stepped outside, one of Ben's henchmen showed up, pointing a gun at him. But Dalton twisted the man's arm in a split second and sent him away with a warning. "Tell Ben he's picking a fight with the wrong man. It's not too late to back off." Right then, another one of Ben's thugs appeared. Dalton looked at him and said, "If your boss has any guts, tell him to meet me outside the roadhouse this evening." Later, when Dalton reached Frankie's office, he asked her why Dale had been targeting this place. Frankie avoided the question and told him not to think too much about it. But Dalton's mind was now full of doubts and questions. Meanwhile, Ben's thug, with his arm broken, returned to Ben and told him everything that had happened. Ben was furious. Dalton had become a thorn in his side. Just then, Ben received a call from his father, who was in prison. But Ben was so angry that he threw the phone into the sea without even listening. At the same time, we're introduced to a man named Knox, who had been caught red-handed by his girlfriend's husband and was now wandering the streets naked. Soon, Ben's father, Gerald, called Knox and gave him a major assignment. Knox happily accepted the job and set out to fix Ben's problems. Meanwhile, Ellie arrived to meet Dalton in a police boat, which surprised him. She took Dalton with her, and together they went to a small island in the middle of the ocean. As they relaxed and drank cold beverages, Ellie tried to learn more about Dalton's past. But he was still hesitant to open up. He told her, "Don't waste your time on me. It's pointless." Then he quietly got up to leave, but Ellie stopped him. She said she had done her research on him and knew quite a lot already. After that, the two grew close to each other. Meanwhile, Knox arrived at Gerald's mansion, where all of Dale's friends were gathered, and soon, Ben showed up too. Without saying a word, Knox suddenly punched Ben right in the face, because his father had ordered him to do so. Ben realized that Knox had been sent by his father, and begged him for some time to make things right. Elsewhere, Ellie dropped Dalton back at the shore. As she was leaving, she saw two officers arresting Dalton. Along with them was a sheriff, who worked for Ben. The sheriff tried to threaten Dalton, but Dalton didn't even flinch. So the sheriff ordered his men to throw Dalton out and finish him off for good. But just in time, Ellie arrived and slapped the sheriff hard across the face. She helped Dalton escape and then revealed a shocking truth: the sheriff was her father. She confessed that she had run away from home with her mother years ago. Ellie explained that her father used to be Gerald's old partner and now worked for Ben. Ellie was deeply worried for Dalton's safety. She begged him to leave town and go somewhere far away. That night, when Dalton returned to the roadhouse, he seemed disturbed. Laura asked him what was wrong, but before he could answer, Ben appeared. He showed Dalton footage of his last UFC match, where Dalton's friend had won. This enraged Dalton, and he brutally beat Ben. Ben then asked, "Why couldn't you control yourself?" But Dalton didn't reply. He stayed completely silent. Afterward, Ben met Knox outside. Moments later, Knox and his men stormed into the roadhouse, wreaking havoc. Billy and Reef teamed up to fight them, while Dalton stood there, calm and silent amid the chaos. Suddenly, Knox challenged Dalton to a fight, and Dalton charged at him, beating him to a pulp. Within minutes, the police arrived, and Knox stopped fighting. Soon after, Dalton walked away toward his boat. Ellie tried to stop him, but he didn't listen. He got on his boat, ready to leave town behind. But before he could go, Frankie arrived and apologized for keeping secrets from him. She finally revealed the truth. Ben wanted to build a luxury resort on this land. But Dalton wasn't affected at all. Despite Frankie's pleas, he left. Meanwhile, Ben got the news that Knox had failed to kill Dalton, and to make things worse, another police unit had shown up and completely ruined his plans. On the other hand, Dalton, feeling disappointed, packed up his belongings and went to the bus station. But there, he saw that Charlie's bookstore had been completely destroyed. When he learned that Charlie and his father were both in the hospital, his heart sank. Furious, he drove straight to Knox's house. There, he found Vince alone. When Dalton realized that Vince was responsible for burning down the bookstore, he didn't hesitate for a second. He snapped Vince's spine. As Vince writhed in pain near the pool, Dalton realized that the demon inside him had awakened. Then, when he loaded Vince's body into his truck, Mo, another thug, showed up. Dalton spared his life in exchange for information. Mo revealed that Ben's black money was going to be transported to a secret location the next morning. He gave Dalton the location and fled to save his life. That night, Dalton once again had flashbacks of the painful fight where he had accidentally killed his friend. The next morning, Dalton got to work. He killed the cop who was guarding Ben's money, loaded all the cash onto a boat, and sent it away somewhere else. But his plan wasn't done yet. He picked up the cop's gun and shot Vince, framing the dead cop for Vince's murder. When the cop started to regain consciousness, Dalton hit him hard on the head, giving him short-term memory loss, so he wouldn't remember anything from the last few hours. Dalton then began preparing some bombs, but suddenly, the sheriff showed up. He told Dalton that Ben had kidnapped Ellie, and in exchange for her life, he wanted his black money back. At first, Dalton pretended not to know anything about the money. But when he realized Ellie's life was in danger, he asked directly when and where he was supposed to meet Ben. After the sheriff left, Dalton took Dex's boat and set off to confront Ben. Meanwhile, when Knox returned home, he found the place eerily silent. Dalton arrived at Ben's yacht, where he met Sam. Sam told him Ben wouldn't be happy to see him since he came empty-handed. When Dalton gave him a sarcastic response, Sam angrily punched him. The sheriff was also there and told Dalton that Ellie was perfectly safe, that he had lied just to lure Dalton into Ben's trap. But then Ben revealed that he had, in fact, actually kidnapped Ellie, which made the sheriff furious. Seeing that Dalton had come without the money, Ben ordered Sam to beat Dalton to death and threatened to kill Ellie too. Just then, Knox's boat arrived. Dalton seized the opportunity and pressed the detonator, setting off a massive explosion on Knox's boat. Everyone panicked. Dalton, gathering his strength, got up and went to find Ellie. He soon found her trying to escape by breaking a window. The two smashed the glass and jumped into the sea. Dalton quickly told Ellie to get on a nearby boat and promised to come right back. But their troubles weren't over yet. Suddenly, Knox came speeding toward them on another boat to attack. Dalton maneuvered another thug's boat and crashed it directly into Knox's, creating chaos. Meanwhile, Ellie had boarded another boat, but Ben was waiting there for her. He grabbed her and tried to escape. Dalton, having taken control of Knox's boat, threw Knox into the ocean. But Knox didn't give up. He clung onto a rope and started chasing Dalton. At that moment, Ben attacked Dalton's boat. So Dalton jumped straight onto Ben's vessel, ready for a final showdown. Ellie shouted that they were about to crash into the roadhouse. Hearing that, Dalton leaped off the boat just in time. Ben was thrown onto the building's roof, while Knox swam to the bridge and pulled himself up. He managed to stop a passing car. Dalton confronted Ben again. Ben hurled a spear at him, but Dalton wasn't in the mood to play anymore. Enraged, he began beating Ben mercilessly, breaking his spine first, then his nose, and continuing to hit him again and again. But suddenly, Knox showed up and crashed his car into the scene, sparking a brutal fight between him and Dalton. Both were fierce fighters, but soon Knox gained the upper hand and stabbed Dalton in the kidney with a wooden stake. He was about to finish him off when Ben, still barely alive, stepped in and told Knox to do his duty. Knox, blinded by rage, killed Ben too, then turned back toward Dalton. But Dalton, gathering the last of his strength, stabbed multiple wooden shards into Knox's body, killing him instantly. Moments later, Ellie arrived with her father, the sheriff. The sheriff told Dalton, "You should leave. I'll take care of the rest." Some time later, Dalton returned to the roadhouse with Frankie, ready to start fresh. Days passed, and Dalton finally decided to leave the town. Charlie tried to stop him, but Dalton had no interest in being anyone's hero. Before Steven could say anything, Dalton boarded the bus and left. If you liked the video, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next one.